The story of the Grinch is one we know well. He steals Christmas joy, that much we can tell. Hiding from the Who's, he despises them all. It may be that his heart is 2 sizes too small. However, this Grinch is not quite what you see. For this is the Grinch found in you and in me.
It's utterly disappointing because Christmas is like 2 weeks away. How you doing? That's what I thought. Okay. Well, my name is Tim. We are so glad you are here. Can't talk. Welcome to 155. You have in your hands or in your seat, you might even be sitting on it at this moment, your program. Everyone hold that up. Everyone hold it up. Let's make sure you got one. All right. Okay, inside of that card is what we like to call our connection card. We want you to fill that out with as much information as you feel comfortable with. That way we can show up at your house and sing Christmas carols all night long. Because you'd love that, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. No. Some of you are like, I hate Christmas music. All right, just be honest. Just own it. If you don't like Christmas music, just show yourself to the room.
It's way too much. We're not saying sucks.
That's why we have altar calls where you can come and you can ask God to forgive you of your sins. I'm kidding. I love Christmas music. It's my jam. Every year, the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, I got those jams pumping. All right, it's legit. Okay, but tonight we're starting a brand new series called, everyone say, Grinched.
Grinched.
All right, I gotta ask, because I gotta know, because I'm a curious person. They say curiosity kills the cat. Well, I'm not dead yet, so we'll find out. All right, who in here? So the Grinch movies. We got some fans. Let's make some noise. All right, who is a fan of the original 1966 classic? All right, let's see it. That's disappointing. That's disappointing. All right, who likes the Jim Carrey version? That's why we come to church, y'all. Because you can't mess with the OG, right? Someone say amen.
Amen.
Some of y'all know about that, the OG. That's right. In fact, in my research for the Grinch series, I discovered they're going to make a new movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, Dr. Strange, as the voice of the Grinch. I'm a little excited, just a little bit. But tonight we're gonna talk about how the Grinch stole Christmas, and I have here where it all began, the American classic. All right, so who's watched it so far? Anybody? You've watched either one? Doesn't matter. Okay, I actually haven't yet, and I'm a little disappointed. Just not had time. But so I'm not going to be presumptuous and assume that you all know the story, you've watched it or you've read it. So we're going to do a little bit of a storybook time. Is that cool? All right, I'm just going to move this out of the way. If I get as close to you guys as possible, I'm going to go librarian style. You know how they'd sit there and be like... Okay, so here we go. We're going to get started because we're only a little bit out of time. Okay, so here we go. Everyone watch. Story time. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all being that his heart was 2 sizes too small. If you're wondering, I'm not going to read the whole story. I'm just hitting the highlights. I know, we ain't got time like that. All right, but whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Who's. Staring down from his cave with a sour Grinch, he frowned at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he started with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his great fingers nervously drumming, I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew, and I'm not going to read this part, I'm going to kind of just generalize. They're going to get their presents, they're going to make too much noise, I don't want to hear it. Ew, presents. And they're going to have a feast with do you guys know what the food was? The meat? Roast beef! The roast beast. That's right. We don't go roast beef here. Roast beast. And they'd feast and they'd feast and they'd feast and yada yada. But here's my favorite part, one of my favorite parts of the story. All right, let's see if we can do this together with some semblance of order, okay? 1, 2, 3. Favu fore davu dore. Welcome Christmas time. Yeah, I don't know. All right, good enough. Okay, good enough. Yeah, give yourself a round of applause. That was good. That was good. That was good. And so the Grinch, hating Christmas, has an idea, a wonderful, awful idea. He dresses up as Santa Claus. Now, my favorite character of this entire story, I got a side note here, Max. The most underappreciated character. He loves the Grinch despite his evilness, okay? And he pulls the giant sled. He's a little dog. Oh. But then, so the Grinch goes down to the town, and he takes Max and his sled, and he breaks into homes because he's performing a B&E here, you know, little burglary. And he slides down the chimney, and he takes all the presents and the ornaments, and it says he leaves crumbs so small that not even a mouse could eat them as he plunders their fridge. Because who does that? Like, who breaks into your house and you steal all the food? Like, where's the flat screen TV, y'all? The Xbox? Hello? Okay, and he shoves it all up the chimney with very carefulness. But here's the part of the story that is so important for us tonight, and I need you guys to really focus. And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. Now, this is what's so important. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny who daughter who got out of, here it is, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. I want y'all to say, she's thirsty. She's thirsty. She needs some water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? And the Grinch, with his cleverness and his deceitfulness, contrives a story of how there's a light that's broken and he's going to take it back to his shop to fix it and bring it back for Christmas. And she's like, oh, of course. And so he shows her to her bed. She goes back to sleep. He steals the fireplace. Or the fire log from the fireplace, he stole the fireplace as he went up it. And he takes all the presents as he goes throughout the town, makes it up, and he's about to push them over the cliff when all of a sudden he's waiting. It says, then the who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. Don't you love rhyming? I do. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. And they weren't sad. The sound wasn't sad. Well, it sounded merry. It couldn't be so. It was very merry, very. And they're singing, and here's what's so important, is he realizes that Christmas is more than just the gifts. It's more than just the food. It's about something special that takes place on Christmas. And so he realizes in this moment that maybe he's got it all wrong. And I would like to bet, now they never say this, so I'm kind of reading into the text here, so follow along with me for a second, okay? I'm getting real analytical, all right? I think it's because of his encounter with Cindy Lou Who that's been kind of sitting with him. It's been kind of stirring inside him, and when he hears the singing of the Who's, he remembers the innocence of little Cindy Lou Who and how much Christmas means to her, even without the presents. And so he takes all the presents back to the town, and they even let him, it says here, he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. Oh, how the Grinch stole Christmas and then gave it all back. You can clap for the story. It's good, right? It's good. That's good. Yeah, it's good. Now, Cindy Lou Who is a super important character in what she does because it reminds me of a story that we find in the book of John about someone who also wants some water. So we're going to take a look. If you would do me a favor, this is going to be a little long to read, okay? But we're going to do something a little different tonight. I want everyone to stand for the reading of God's holy word because it is holy. It is perfect, all right? So we're going to take a look and read this story. If you want to pull it up on your phone and read along, it's a good chunk, okay? So I do not mind, as long as you're not Snapchatting or Instagramming or whatever it is you kids do these days. All right, so let's take a look at John chapter 4. All right, so we're talking about Jesus here, and he says, so he left Judea and returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way, and eventually he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, please give me a drink. He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. They were hungry. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, you are a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink? And Jesus replied, if you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me and I would give you living water. Catch that, it's pretty important. Let's continue on. But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket, she said, and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed? Even the little old sheep, man. All right. Yeah, I just did that. Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. Catch this, but those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. Boom. Here we go. We're continuing on. Please, sir, the woman said, give me this water and then I'll never be thirsty again and I won't have to come here to get water. Go and get your husband, Jesus told her. Now, y'all catch this. I don't have a husband, the woman replied. Here's where it gets juicy. Jesus said, you're right. You don't have a husband, for you've had 5 husbands. And you aren't even married to the man that you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. Here we go. Sir, the woman said, you must be a prophet. So tell me, why is it that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place of worship, while we Samaritans claim it is here at Mount Gerizim where our ancestors worship? You see what she did there? She did what we like to call a change in the subject. She was like, this mountain, Jesus, do you know about that? Yeah, I do that sometimes too. God calls out a sin and I'm like, hey, so what about that squirrel? It's really bushy-tailed. Yeah, so anyway, so we continue on. Jesus replied, believe me, dear woman, the time is coming when it will no longer matter whether you worship the Father on the mountain or in Jerusalem. You Samaritans know very little about the one you worship, while we Jews know all about him, for salvation comes through the Jews. He's talking about himself here. All right? But the time is coming, indeed, it's here now, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. The Father is looking for those who will worship him that way, for God is spirit. So those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. The woman said, I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. Then Jesus told her, boom, drop the mic, I am the Messiah. She's like, whoo. Just then his disciples came back. They were shocked to find him talking to a woman, but none of them had the nerve to ask, what do you want with her? Or why are you talking to her, Jesus? So the woman left her water jar beside the well and ran back to the village, telling everyone, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah? So the people came streaming from the village to see him. And that is the story. You guys can have a seat. You can clap for that story too. It's better than the Grinch story. I mean, I can guarantee that. So here's the thing. I got 4 points tonight, and then I'm going to wrap this puppy up, and we're going to... That's a terrible phrase. Wrap up the puppy? I'm just going to walk away from that one. All right, so we're going to do 4 points. It's good stuff. I need you guys to write this down. You've got your programs. Get your pen. Let me hear. Let's hear them click. Music to my ears. All right? All right, point number 1 for tonight. There are no accidents. Write that down. There are no accidents. Now, maybe you're thinking like when someone falls and they break their leg. Not talking about that kind. Okay, not that kind of accident. There are no accidents in your life. What I mean by that is your friends, your family, the people that you go to school with, everyone you come into contact with, where you live, what side of town you're on, all of those things were no accident. Okay, you following me so far? You good? I know we did a lot of storytelling there. It's good stuff though. Because here's the thing, we find out, and also in this story, in the Bible itself, there are no accidents. God is always orchestrating some events or some plans to happen, even if we don't necessarily know how they unfold. And so what I need you to know, and I'm gonna be saying these points a lot tonight because we're gonna hammer them in. There are no. Oh, okay. Some of you guys are watching. All right. There are no. That's right. And here's the thing. I do want to say this. I'm not going to say that the bad things that happen are meant to happen. Okay? I'm not going to say that. But here's the reality. We live in a fallen world, right? If you've ever sinned, raise your hand. Let's just be real. We've all sinned, right? Okay? I'm not trying to call anybody out. We're just being real. We've all sinned. And so, because of the consequences of our sin, we've made a jacked up world. Right? Bad things happen to people. But here's the thing. God, even in the midst of those terrible things that we have brought on ourselves, can use them to make something beautiful. So there are no accidents. Because here's the thing. You are here on this earth. You are here tonight for a purpose. I believe that. Now, if you're a skeptic like I am, you would ask the question, I heard someone say it. Why? Why, right? Anybody ever ask that question? Why? Why? Because, let me tell you why. You should ask that question because it's good to ask questions. It's good because that means you're paying attention. It means you're actually listening and honing in. And I think that when we did that whole series about the journey, is we pray and we ask God to give us the why. Why am I here? Why am I with these people? Why is this my family? God begins to give us maybe just a little tiny piece of the picture, but it helps us to get some perspective on why we're here and where we're at. Because you might even ask questions like, well, why am I smart but I'm not that athletic? Or why am I not as awesome as Tim? I mean, it's questions people ask all the time, and I just say, God's good. No, I'm playing it. That was so lame. I know that. But seriously, maybe you say, well, why am I athletic but I'm not as smart as I'd like to be? Or maybe, why am I good at math but not science? Or why am I good at social studies? Or because God has made you uniquely. God has made you to be someone that is unlike anyone else in the entire world because it was no accident. It was with a purpose. And so what I want to, as we transition back to the story, y'all remember back with me here. This lady, I want you to do a little background here. In the old days when they'd go to get water, okay, so they had to walk to get their water, right? Okay, it wasn't like just like a water fountain or whatever. They would go in the cool of the morning or the cool of the evening because you got to sometimes it's a long walk, and so you need to go get some water. But it says in the story that the lady goes like kind of at midday, at the hottest part of the day. Anyone thinking why? Because I would imagine that the town, the people there know that she's had how many husbands? She's an outcast. She comes at a time when no one else is coming to get water because then she doesn't have to see anybody. Now, that's kind of just an educated guess, but that's the thing is she comes at a time when really no one else comes to get water, but who else shows up at that moment? There are no accidents. Jesus was there because he knew that she would be there. It's no accident. And that brings us to point number 2. Jesus wants to quench your thirst. Jesus wants to, I want you to write that down, quench your thirst. Gatorade actually stole that from the Bible, the thirst quencher. You didn't know that, did you? See, like I was saying, back in the day, they had to walk everywhere they went, right? They couldn't just walk up to a water fountain. Like if you got up, walked out that door right there, right now, you could walk to a water fountain, get you a sip of water, you're good to go, right? Back in those days, they lived in an arid, hot, muggy place. Without water, you die. You D-E-D, dead. I'm real good at spelling, y'all. I English hard, okay? All right. So here's the thing, right? If you don't drink water, you die. So they have to go get water. So this lady's eventually going to have to make it to the well. She's eventually got to go get her some water. But she knows if she goes that when everyone else goes, that it might not go out so well for her. So when Jesus shows up and he asks her for water, and we're going to come back to this, why she's like so shocked. And she says, well, I'm a Samaritan woman. She didn't have a deep voice like that. But she says, I'm a Samaritan woman. Like, okay, there's a reason for that. We're going to get to that in a little while. But the reality is, Jesus says, if you knew who was asking you for a drink of water, you'd ask me for living water. Because here's the thing. This woman, she was thirsty. You're like, what? Did he just say? I said that. This woman is thirsty, okay? And it's not just for water, all right? Now, let me stop here for a second. Some of you are like, is he really saying that? Yes, I am. So for the adults in the room, if you're not aware, I'm going to do a little, and you guys can kind of verify whether I'm on the right track, okay? So thirsty is a colloquial term that does not mean you're necessarily thirsty for water, okay? Right? In fact, it's generally a negative term, and it doesn't necessarily mean, it can mean something, like in this story. It could mean maybe it's someone, maybe a guy is really girl crazy, or maybe a girl is really boy crazy. It also can be used to if you're just really striving for more followers on Twitter, or you really want all those likes. You're thirsty for some, am I right? Okay, right? Some nods of approval. Look, I'm just being real. Okay, but what we know in this story is that this woman's thirsty. I'm being honest, right? Because here's the thing. What she didn't even realize, and what Jesus is getting to, is that she's thirsty and she don't even know it. It's not even just about worldly stuff. We're segueing away from that. It's because she needs something more than what she has. Because was it working? No. She didn't. It didn't work with one husband. It didn't work with two. She's just living life, trying to figure out how to quench her thirst. See, she wants the water and asks Jesus to, and Jesus asked her to bring her husband, and her response is, I don't have one. And Jesus goes all Jedi mind trick on her, and he's like, I know you had 5. When I see 5, I'm like, oh. I'm like, dang. And now we see, like we were saying, why she comes during the hot part of the day. Because this lady is thirsty. And I need you, this is what I want you to do here, okay? Bring it in a little bit. I need you to not see yourself outside the story. It's real easy when we hear the story of the Samaritan woman, we're like, dang, that woman's having a rough time. But here's the reality. In this story, we're the Samaritan woman. It might not be the exact circumstances of what she's going through, but every single one of us, we're thirsty for something. Whatever that is, we're craving and seeking after things that do not fulfill the way that Jesus fulfills. Because Jesus ultimately wants to quench your thirst. It might be a boyfriend, it might be a girlfriend. It might be popularity, it could be recognition, it could be all kinds of things. The list is forever long. Because, let's be honest, we're a thirsty generation. Can I get an amen? We are, no, seriously. Because here's the thing, we have to know that we need something more. We have to realize that it's not just enough to live our life the way we're living it now. But here's the thing, I do want to jump back to the story of the woman. We don't know all the circumstances with her relationships. Maybe things just didn't go well and she went from marriage to marriage. Maybe she just had really bad luck picking guys. And so after the 5th, she's just like, marriage vows? What good's that done me? And so she's staying with him. I don't know. But what I do know is this, that regardless of the reasons why she got to where she's at, through the shame and through the hurt, Jesus offers her something more, the living water to satisfy her heart and her thirst. So what I want to ask you tonight, I'm going to do this little thing, and this is generalization, so don't feel like I'm picking on anybody. Young man, I want you to look at me in the eyes. Are you letting Jesus quench your thirst? Are you chasing after stuff that, let's just be honest, it's not quenching the thirst like you want it to? Because here's the thing, God is as real as the chair that's holding you up right now. He is as real as the blood that's coursing through your veins, and he is as real as the nose that's between your eyes. Right? Yeah? And let me tell you, he'll quench your thirst. But you got to ask him. You got to let him do that for you. Now, young ladies, I want you to know, you can chase after anything in this world. Again, this is generalizations, okay? I'm not picking on anybody. I want you to know, you can chase after anything. It can be after a guy. It could be after stuff. I don't know. I'm not a girl, so I don't know. But my point is this. Jesus wants to quench your thirst. And guys and girls, I want you to know that Jesus is more than enough if you let him be. Because he just is. He wants to be the one to fulfill your heart's desires. But here's what's so important in this story. Jesus didn't just tell her sin and cast her away. He loved her exactly where she was. And that brings us to point number 3. Jesus is bigger. Jesus is bigger. See, here's the thing. Jesus was bigger than this woman's past and her present. Now, he's bigger than the sin that was holding her and bigger than her thirsty reputation. And it's the reason that he shows up when he does. See, she didn't come to the other times because it was a point of gossip. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands because that would further add to what I'm about to say. I don't know about you, but I have been in the midst of a shameful situation. And if you haven't, I'm glad. If you have, you know what I'm talking about. When you walk into your classroom or to your lunchroom or practice with your team, and everyone knows what you've done. Everybody. And you know they're pointing their fingers and you know they're talking about you. You know that shame, that guilt? It is crushing, isn't it? I mean, it is the worst. And so this woman, Jesus wants us to know and wants her to know that he is bigger than the shame. Because here's the thing, sometimes people let that kind of stuff drive them away from Jesus, from the church, and they don't ever want anything to do with it again. But I want you to know, Jesus is bigger. We don't have to run away because Jesus can take everything we've got and it's going to be okay because he meets us where we're at. And here's another part. So I said earlier we're talking about the fact that she's a Samaritan woman, right? There's another level of the story that's really interesting, and I'm not going to be able to get into all the history of it. But Samaritans and Jews did not get along. I mean, they butted heads. They were at war, okay? They did not like one another. And, sorry ladies, back in that time especially, women were not considered equal to men, right? I mean, it's just a reality, okay? Now, I think that should be the case, and I know there's still discrepancies even now, but I want you to know that Jesus sees past that, and that's what I'm segueing to, is that when you saw when the disciples got back, they're like, why are you talking to a woman? Like, hold up. Let's just pause here for a moment. But they don't say anything, but they're thinking it. And that's because I want you to know that Jesus is bigger than the cultural walls in the world. Can I get an amen on that? I mean, when we think about it, we have all this junk that's flying around in the world, right? Because people, what am I trying to get at here? Jesus is bigger than race. Jesus is bigger than gender. Jesus is bigger than politics. He's bigger than anything you can throw at him. And what I want you to know tonight, he was bigger than the connections between Jews and Samaritans and women. And he's bigger than what we see in our world right now. See, Jesus didn't just push away those that didn't fit the mold of societal norms. He embraced everyone right where they were at. And I want you to know tonight, if you only hang out with people that are just like you, then you aren't embracing the cultural model that Jesus set for us. Some of you are like, whoa, dang. I mean, am I right though? See, Jesus is bigger than that. Jesus is bigger than, yes, I'm talking about this. He doesn't care if you're, let me rephrase that. He does care that you are unique. He does care that you're special. But Jesus wants us to know that we can interact. Because we see all this crap in social media, and we see all this junk in politics, and it's black and white, it's all this junk, it's Democrats versus Republicans, and I don't know about you, I'm sick of it. Are you? I want to see a world where everyone, and I know this is going to sound like cheesy, but you know what I'm getting at. I want to see a world where everyone can get along and they can love each other despite who they are. Am I right? And I know, because Jesus said so. Shoot. He knows. I mean, seriously. And so I want to issue a challenge. Okay, I want you to look around the room. I want you to look around the room. My challenge is that 1 year from now, because here's the thing, and maybe you're going to be like, whoa, he just said that. I'm going to say it. 1 year from now, I want you to look around the room, seriously, take a good look. Take a good look at the people in this room. I don't want the room to look the same way that it does right now. I'm being dead serious. Why? Because one of the best things about the church is that it is the most diverse and beautiful group of people in the entire world. Am I right? If we only see, and I'm just being honest with you here, okay, and I think we do a good job of this, but I'm sure you know of places. If you've only got white folks in your church, you're doing something wrong. If you only got black people in your church, you're doing something wrong. If you only got a certain type of people and I mean, we could list all the races. If we have a church full of dudes, we did something wrong. Okay? If we have a church full of ladies, the ladies are like, that's fine. That's okay. We good with that. But you see where I'm getting at here? The church was meant to be a place of diversity and beauty, and we, in our royally failure way to mess things up, because we do, we have made the church something it was never supposed to be, and that's to look only and represent one group of people. So, my challenge is the same, and I want to say it again. You might want to write this down. It's good. It's good. I don't want to see this room looking exactly the same as it does. I said that backwards. I want this room to look different a year from now than it does in this moment. Does that make sense? Tracking with me? Okay. All right. And that brings us, I'm about to skip a good part here. It's good. Above the Jesus is bigger than our past and our present. And he's bigger than any sin you could ever commit. He's bigger than cultural walls. And I want you to know, Jesus is bigger than cancer. He's bigger than addictions. He's bigger than anything that is in your life that keeps you from him. He's bigger than any sickness, any evil. I want you to know that Jesus is bigger. I want you to repeat that after me. Jesus is bigger. Jesus is bigger. I want you to make that your mantra. When the world throws you all the crap, I want you to say, that's right, because he is. Jesus is bigger. And that brings us to point number 4. When it becomes true for you, it becomes true for others. What I mean by this is, when all of these things, when you live life like there are no accidents, when you let Jesus quench your thirst, and you know that Jesus is bigger, you begin to see a change, you should see a change in your life, right? There should be something noticeably different. I don't mean like you went from this to like stud muffin, okay? I'm not saying that, although maybe you get in shape during that time. I don't know. What I'm saying is this. People should be able to know that there is something different about you. If you have no noticeable change, if your friends, your family, they can't notice anything different, you might want to retry. Seriously. There should be a difference. Because here's the thing, when you begin to live like it's true for you, people are going to start to wonder. Because when you start to live a life that honors God and that Jesus is bigger, when things come up in your life and they're like, I wonder what he's going to do to handle that, people are going to see you just do this. That's good. They're going to see you get your thirst quenched. See what I did there? Water, Jesus. But seriously though, they're going to see you and they're going to think, I need that. Because there's a world full of hurting people out there, right? I mean, there are people that maybe even in this room are hurting tonight. And Christmas, what's supposed to be the merriest time of the year, right? We've got 10 jillion songs we listen to for a month that make me happy and peppy, and they I mean, like, there's a Christmas song for everything. For Rudolph and Frosty and I Hear the Bells on Christmas Day. I mean, you can think of it, there's a Christmas song for it, but my point is this. In a time when it's supposed to be the happiest, most celebrated time of the year, where everyone comes together, when peace is made, when we put aside all of our differences, we get to Christmas. But there are people that are still hurting. There are people that still need us. And they need us to live like we're different. Because if we don't live as if points 1 through 3 are true, then point 4 does not even matter. If we don't believe that there are no accidents and that Jesus can quench our thirst and that he's bigger than all of the junk, then it's not true for us. So tonight, what I want you to know is that Jesus is bigger than your past and your present. He's bigger than anything in your life that's keeping you from Him. He's bigger than any addiction, all that stuff we talked about. I want you to know that Jesus, say it again. I just need you to say it. Come on. Say it again. I need a little more oomph. That's right. We have to be the example, because if it's not us, who's it going to be? There are people in your school that need you. There are people on your team that need you. There are people at your lunch table, they need you. But my question is this: will you live as if it's true for you so that it will become true for others? This time the band would make their way up here on the stage. Everything we do should point to the Jesus that amidst our thirsty generation, with His water, with His living water, not just regular water, can quench your thirst. So I want you to take a look. That connection card I showed at the beginning, I talked about at the beginning of the service, I want you to get that out real quick. Tonight, you have a unique opportunity. Maybe tonight, you need to let Jesus quench your thirst for the first time. Maybe it's time to let Jesus start moving in your life because you're hurting. If you were here this morning, Pastor Jeff said something that I thought was so good. We try to fill our spiritual needs, our hungers, with physical things. We're thirsty. If you want your thirst quenched tonight for the first time, on your card there's a box. I want you to check it. And the reason we ask you to do this is because we want to pray for you. We want to be able to follow up with you and you know, when you go to groups tonight, talk to your group leader if you make that decision, because this is the most important decision you will ever make, to let Jesus quench your thirst. And tonight, maybe you're like, look, I need some more water. I've forgotten. I'm not drinking enough water. Well, tonight I want you to know you can let Jesus quench your thirst. But will you let Him? And maybe, just maybe, we'll begin to see more change in our schools. Maybe in your neighborhood, people will begin to see you and think, man, I want what they have. I need that. So tonight, as the band's going to play in just a moment after I pray, are you going to let Jesus be enough? Because He's more than enough, y'all. Let me just tell you. He is everything you'll ever need. But will you let Him be? Will you let Jesus quench your thirst? Let's pray. Father, it feels like sometimes we come 1,000 times and we're at the same place that we're at before. We ask for forgiveness. We ask for you to be there, and you are, but we forget. And I ask God that tonight that every person in this room would seriously consider the difference it will make in their life if they live like your water, your living water, can quench their thirst. Help each and every one of us to begin to see where it is that we need you to fill the void and the emptiness so that we can be fulfilled. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.